And I'm going to turn it over to Dennis and Carl. This is everything that we want to know about our esteemed, wonderful fellowship degree. Thank you, gentlemen.
Well, we're glad to have you here tonight, right, Carl?
Absolutely. The more the merrier.
The other member of our committee that works with us is Doran Wilson, and him and his wife are riding their motorcycles somewhere out in the Badlands. So he won't probably be with us tonight. And if I had a real technical question, he's the one I refer to because he's been around forever in this area. But I've been here now for about 10 years, and Carl's learning the ropes. So hopefully we can guide you guys if you have, and ladies, if you have any questions tonight. All right. So if you type your questions in, I'm sure they will read them to us and we can answer all of your questions if you have them. So first, I'm going to start, and I'm just going to tell you what the restrictions are, requirements are for you to even go after this particular degree, if I can find that. You need to be an ASP member in good standing. You need to be a member of PPA for 3 years and a member of ASP for 3 years at the time you submit your application. All right. You need to have earned at least one PPA Master degree. Doesn't matter which one, just one of them. And then you have to have 15 additional PPA merits after that degree. So you get your degree in the photographic open area, and then you're working on your wedding degree or your artisan degree or whatever other degree you're after. All those merits after that original degree are counted towards the 15 that are required to apply for your ASP fellowship. All right. Then once you hit those requirements, you'll write a personal paper and submit a body of work, which includes 25 images. And that will happen when you're ready after that point. So those are the requirements. And then there's a lot more to talk about, but those are the requirements. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them, but we're going to go on and start explaining things from this point in time. Question.
Those are print merits, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Print merits.
So a craftsman degree couldn't be your degree. It would have to be a degree related to your prints.
Correct. It has to be a master's degree of some sort in any of those categories. And then the print merits the 15 print merits have to follow after that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other thing too, the 3 years has got to be consecutive years. So in other words, if you don't pay dues and then you come back for a year and you say, well, I've been there for 3 years, but 3 years in a row up to the point where you apply.
And that's usually where people get hung up. Right there is that 3-year minimum. And I certainly don't, I think it's a good rule, and that's why it's being enforced. So that's where we're at. So we can talk about the paper first, and then let's talk about how the judging happens. All right. So you're going to submit your personal paper. Then you're going to submit the 25 images. On the day of the judging, the judges end up with your paper a month before the judging happens. They read them over so that they're familiar with them when they come to the judging. So when we get to the judging, say we have 6 people entering this year. All of the Carl, I, and Doran, and anybody there helping us, like my wife, will unpack all the cases and set them all in a row. And then we will write each of the application names on a piece of paper. And then we randomly draw them out to see what order your portfolio will be judged. And last year we even did it so that we put them in a hat and made the judges pick it. They don't get to see whose name's on that piece of paper. They just get to see the piece of paper that they got in their hands. Now, you may think that's weird, but understand the judges already know who's submitting because they've got the paper in front of them with the photographer's name on that. So it's not a secret of who's judging and who's entering. It's just what order they're going to be judged in that particular day. So when we start that, what will happen is that they'll come into the room and the first maker's portfolio will be on the wall. They'll sit down and then we'll have a discussion about the personal paper. Each judge will discuss the paper, their positives, their negatives, or whatever. And then when we go through that process, then who's ever running the panel at that time will ask if the paper is accepted, and then the judges will vote on that. If the paper is accepted, then we move on to the portfolio. If the paper is not accepted, which does happen, we still will move on to the portfolio only for the fact that the judges have an opportunity to change their mind at any time. So then they get up and they walk through the exhibit of the 25 images, looking at what's on the wall. They can get as close as they want. They can look at it for as long as they want. There's no requirements. They can, as a maker, you want them to go up and enjoy it and sit their butt back in their seat. If they stand up there too long, chances are they've seen things that they don't like, and it may come to light during the discussion. But they can stay up there as long as they want. Once they sit back down, then we start a discussion on the portfolio. And again, each judge will have a say. Who's ever moderating the panel at the time will pick one of them to start. Say Carl is on my panel this year, or Joe Campanelli, who already has the degree. I would say, Joe, start the conversation on the portfolio. And he would start the conversation and say, I think this portfolio flows well together. I think the images are exposed very nicely. I think it's an incredible body of work. And then we go to the next judge and they may say, well, I totally disagree. I see banding in all the images, and that's what happens. It goes down to the next person, until all judges have spoke. And then anybody else that would have a comment. Unlike PPA, I will ask, does anybody else have a comment before we take the vote? And again, Carl could come back and say, I don't really see the banding that you're talking about. And then at that point, Joe may get up and walk up to the portfolio again. He's got every opportunity to do that. So once they're happy and they're satisfied with all the comments, we will take a vote. You need 4 out of the 5 to get your fellowship degree. And if they vote positive and they voted positive on the paper, we're done. Simple as that. If you only have 3 votes yes and 2 votes no, then somebody on the positive side can talk about it and ask them to change their minds, reconsider, blah, blah, blah. So say your portfolio ends up 3-2 and you don't get awarded the fellowship. We go on to the next entrant, we get to the 4th one, and somebody says, it's really haunting me, that first portfolio, I'd like to bring it back. We'll bring it back. You can bring it back as many times as you want until at the end, I say, are you guys happy with what we've done today? And if they say yes, then I say, okay, the judging is officially over. And at that point, they can't bring anything back. And to be honest, we've had portfolios brought back after they sat for an hour and a half, and they've ended up getting their fellowship. I've never in my tenure on this panel have had a portfolio that's received the fellowship have it taken away from them. But not to say that that can't happen either. So that is the process. Correct, Carl?
I'll start nodding because I was muted. Yes.
All right. And do you want to add anything to this?
Just that it is a very serious thing, that, this is a tradition and it's taken very seriously. Those that have been there in the past can attest to that. We're not joking around and laughing and giggling. This is something that's very serious. It's somebody's life work, and it's taken very, very to heart with everybody that's there. The judges that will not be named. I'm sure Dennis will talk about that too. The workers, the volunteers that are there because of the workers. It's all taken very, very seriously, and it's hopefully going to stay that way for a very long time and keep up that tradition.
Okay. So
Maricela has a question. She asks, do you need 4 out of 5 in both the paper and the portfolio?
yes.
And then combined.
And then combined, once you vote on the paper and that's approved, you vote on the portfolio and that's approved. And then the last vote is, are you willing to award the fellowship to this particular person? And they need 4 out of 5 votes there. So what I'm going to ask is, I see that Ron Nichols is in the room, and Ron has judged as a non-fellow. The other thing that happens is that of our judges, we have 4 fellows and 1 non-fellow. And Ron was a non-fellow judge 3 years ago. And so, Ron, can you give your insight to the process as not having your fellowship degree?
Well, I think that you pretty much summed it up the way that it works exactly as what Dennis said. It's a very honorable process. It's a very, very fair process. So everybody has the opportunity to talk. I think that, when I was there as a non-fellow, they, treated me with respect. I wasn't treated as any less of a judge as the non-fellow, and was able to take and, have my opinion valued, and of course, and I respected everybody else's opinion as you go through the process. But it's interesting. It's, it really is something I think to be, when you get the fellowship, I think it's something anybody can be very proud of because of the high integrity that takes place in the whole process. It's there. It's fun, like any type of judging, you learn. I think I would guess that most anybody that they bring in as a non-fellow judge has probably been a PPA judge, probably for quite a while, I would guess. I don't know who the other non-fellows have been or not involved in the process, but it's a good experience. It's very fair.
Thanks. So a couple things. This competition is not a PPA competition. And just because you have 25 lone images and you throw them at this committee does not mean you're going to get your fellowship degree. We could care less if you have a lone image. What we care about is that your portfolio works together from top to bottom, right to left. And we want it to be reflected in the paper that you write. What some of the instructions say online is that we want your lifetime work, basically. And like I said earlier, that's not really what we want. We want the work that has taken you a lifetime to create. That's what we want. And your paper needs to reflect that. It needs to be interwoven between the images that the judges are looking at in front of them so that it makes sense. So I'm not going to tell you that you need to have a theme, like all landscapes or all portraits or all birds. I'm not going to say that, but you do need to have your portfolio fit and work together. That means as the judges look at it, does it flow in a pattern? Like you don't have all low key images and 3 high keys stuck in the middle of it somewhere. It has to work as a unit. In my portfolio, which was submitted back in 98, I'm done it a long time ago. The last image in my one of my images in my 25 images, the best score it ever got at PPA was a 76. But it worked in the portfolio to make my 25 images work. And so remember, this is not a, and we have had people submit to the fellowship that has put 25 lone images in there. Understand, they're beautiful images. I'm not denying that, but they didn't work together and they were not awarded the fellowship degree. So that is my warning to you, that make sure that your portfolio flows together. And by saying that, I'm going to say that you need to have somebody working with you, somebody that has the degree more recently than not, to give you guidance on images that you're going to select. I'd start with 50, 70 images and start paring it down, and then let somebody that has that degree help you finish putting the layout together, possibly. Joe, you also have your degree. If you want to unmute and say anything about that, because you have judged in the past. What you're thinking was when you did the process to get your degree.
I got help. You know, there's a lot of people that don't want the help or don't want people to know that they're working on their fellowship. You know, I went and got help. Of course, I had my wife, you know, behind me the whole time. I had somebody, a college professor, edit my paper. I think that's important, you know, to make sure that it made sense. But, you know, I think what you said about the portfolio really hits home, that it really has to work together with your paper, because I remember sitting there judging and reading the paper, and then images would come up and they wouldn't have anything to do with, you know, what they wrote. So.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And to take it seriously, because I've had other people who contact me and said, "Oh, I'll just knock this out in a week."
So,
You know,
so understand. I know there's a question you need to ask, but understand, when you submit your portfolios, that's why we have the deadlines when we have them. The paper deadline has passed. The next deadline is coming up. And then finally, the portfolio deadline is like in July sometime, I believe, July 31st. The personal paper needs to be in my office by June something. But understand, we are having a judging. So if you still wanted to submit this year, you got a lot of work ahead of you, and I'll take your portfolio. But this may be something you want to work towards next year with. But I am having a judging. So you missed the first deadline, the application, but you can still apply, and I'll take your portfolio because I am going to have a judging this year. All right. So when the benefit of doing all of this on time is that at the end of May, Carl and Doran and I got together and discussed the people that were entering this year. And in that way, we can select judges that are good in those areas of expertise. Like if I have a group of people submitting that are going to be doing landscapes or portraits or birds or abstracts like Ella, I don't know who you get to judge that crap stuff. But once we know who's judge or who's entering, we can then select our 5 judges so that it benefits the people that are submitting their work, if that makes sense. All right. So was there a question?
Yes, Ron Nichols has a question, and then Maricela wanted to know, what are the elements the judges use to judge the portfolio? Are they the 12 elements? Are the 12 elements relevant or not?
Well, the 12 elements are always relevant because that makes a quality image.
Right.
You know, exposure, lighting, color harmony. But it's the 12, but it's not the 12 elements on one image. It's the 12 elements on your portfolio.
And the paper.
When you got to have excellent lighting on all 25 images. You have to have color harmony not only on your images, but through the portfolio. The whole thing has to work together. You'll see some people that have submitted a black and white portfolio because they submitted a couple times in color and they could never get 25 images to work well together in color. But as black and whites, it's a slam dunk. So that's why you really need to have help of other people that have got the degree, because they can look at it and say, where your portfolio is struggling is that there's too many colors. And as I say that, we had somebody that did Indian weddings submit a number of years ago, and there was color all over the place, but it worked because of the style and the culture that they were submitting for. And I know I'm confusing some of you, but it really does make sense if you're sitting in the room. It really does.
Well, and we'll look at some of these portfolios in just a little bit, and I think that will help too. Ron, did you want to unmute yourself?
I prefer he doesn't, but
Thanks. Actually, I've got a question, but I want to make a comment kind of related to some of this, just from being down there as a judge before. I think probably that I can see where the value of going to an outside mentor to help you out, because I remember one of the situations that came up, and we were judging one that somebody I think had submitted previously and was denied, and there was something in there. I'm not going to say it was too personal, but it was everything. It was something that was very, very personal to them, but yet it really didn't relate to the big picture of everything. And what happened is that, and this person, they didn't want to take the advice of, I think, probably the mentors, or even, some feedback, I think, from the initial judging that on this, and it was denied again because it just wasn't working as it goes together. So I think it's anytime we all have, whenever we're entering images in any type of competition, we have images that we fall in love with, and we just have these high expectations because we have some type of personal relationship with them, and that may not always be the case when you're dealing with fellowship. That was just my opinion from that, that experience of being there. All right, the question I have for you, Dennis, you said something that I didn't quite get all of it, and I just wanted to have you restate it again if you could. You probably won't remember what you said, but we'll give it a shot.
that's true. That's true.
You were talking about the work, it being your life's work, but yet what? Can you tie that together again when you're there?
Right, because if you read through all the material on the website, it says, we want your life work. And so what we've seen for portfolios is that somebody will submit a portfolio and they'll have images in there from their first 3 years of making images, and then 10 years later, then 15 years later, then 20 years later. And they say, well, this is my life work. You asked for my life work. And that's not what we want. We want the work that has taken you a lifetime to create. All of the experiences, when I first, we've been friends a long time. When I got into photography, I could shoot my way out of a brown paper sack. And because of some of you that helped me, I became a decent photographer. But if I would have submitted any images from my first 10 years of being in business, I'd never have this degree. It's only because I learned and I grew and I matured. And some of that is going to drive you in a direction of what types of images that you push. Like when Carl submitted, it was portraits, environmental portraits, because over the years of him growing and becoming a better photographer, that was where his passion was. Mine was environmental children when I did it. Ella Carlson was just weird stuff that we're not sure what she's smoking when she creates it. But again, it's the passion and where they ended up after years of working in this industry. Is that a better answer? Just shake your head.
So it's essentially the sum of all your experiences and where that has led you to be at this point in time.
Correct.
And actually, that's kind of sums up the paper as well. I mean, the paper that's how they combine, is that the paper is explaining what we went through, our passions, our experiences, how we got to where we are, and now how do all these images relate to what we came up with in this industry. And so that's why they have to kind of harmonize together, because it is embodying all our experiences and skill sets and what we learned. And that's why I think you hit it on the head with, having somebody to help you, like Joe said, embrace that. That's part of your life in this industry. I mean, nobody really got here on our own. And to me, I thought I was going to do it on my own, plain and simple. But in the end, that was my favorite part of this whole experience, was that it didn't work by myself, and that I learned a lot more about me by having other people help me. And a lot of people helped me with this. I didn't need just one person. I needed like 18 or something like that. So, but that was a big part of this experience. So embrace that.
The bottom line is you're responsible for the portfolio that comes to us. So as you get advice from other people, other mentors, other ASP fellows, remember that they may say, this is the direction you should go, but two different fellows may give you two different pieces of advice. At the end of the day, you're going to make the decision, but take into account everything that they've told you as far as the color harmony and the layout and how it looks before you submit those 25 images. So just a little background. My portfolio was on environmental children. My paper was written, and my paper was written about what children had taught me about photography and life as I was in photography. And so it all worked together, and I didn't refer to any images necessarily, but others do within their papers. But I tied my paper about what children taught me about life and about photography in my portfolio as they were looking at it. So that's what we mean by tying everything back together, right, Carl?
Yeah, I mean, when the judges read the paper, they should have a vision of what they're expecting to see when they walk into that room. And, I've been part of this a few times now. And unfortunately, there's been times that I was so excited about a paper. Like, I can't wait to see this portfolio because, man, this is really interesting. I can't wait to see what they do with it. And I was so let down because it wasn't anything like I thought. So, an analogy, think about it this way. You've all, of course, entered images in an image competition. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. It's the same thing as like a title. If you use a title that confuses everybody and everybody hears a title and they go, huh? It's going to hurt it. So your paper needs to be a good title. It needs to harmonize.
So we've talked a lot. Are there any questions before we continue to bore you to death with our drool? Because if not, we will.
Yeah, I have one, Dennis.
Yes.
What about the portfolios and the papers? Are those on file somewhere electronically that we have the opportunity to reread and view the
Yes.
portfolios again? Okay.
Yes, ASP started doing that a number of years ago, but it was after everything became more digital. Like all my stuff was done on film. So, I think they go back as far as when Dennis Hammond got his, maybe even a little earlier. So yes, there's a lot of portfolios and papers on the website, and it does not hurt to look at them. And you were going to bring some of them up for us to look at, correct?
Yes. Are you ready for that?
Well, let's try one. Oh, wait, I got one more question from Bruce.
Is there a minimum length of the paper or a maximum length?
Till it's
Oh, yeah.
done.
Yeah, sorry. 2,000 words, and that's the minimum. There is no maximum. But again, I'm going to warn you. that just because there's no maximum, do not send a paper that's got 10,000 words. Do not do that. And we've had people do that. They think that they need to tell us their whole life story, and that's not what we want. You know, they told us from grade school up to, you know, picking blueberries one afternoon to finally getting to the rest of the story. You know, they gave us their whole career. That's not what we want, because the judges will get bored. I'm just being honest, they'll get bored and they'll lose interest. So it says 2,000 words minimum. I wouldn't go too much over 3 or 4, in my opinion. Right, Carl?
Correct. I was one of the long ones. Sorry, guys.
So, yeah. Did that answer all your questions on that, Bruce? Oh, minimum image.
Yes.
25 images. The smallest size of print can be 11 by 14. Now, in the past, somebody called and said, well, my landscape really fits more of a 10-inch longer frame. I said, that's fine, but figure out what the square inches are for the 11 by 14, and you better hit that with your 10 by whatever. So if you're gonna not make at least 11 inches on one side, you better ask the question, because you would hate to get disqualified.
Because it comes with the price.
It comes with a price.
And it is not unusual for someone not to accomplish this on their first attempt, correct?
Or second, or third.
Just so everyone's aware.
Correct.
Again,
same.
this isn't an easy thing to do.
Yeah, yeah. My feeling is, and Joe, you can jump in on this, is that the more help you get from people that have the degree, I think your shot is better, quicker. And
Yeah,
then,
well,
go
I
ahead.
got mine on my first try. Of course, I had some great help in Don Emmerich, so just kind of pushing me in the right direction. And I was almost at the stage of giving up because my dad had passed away, and he calls me and said, "You're not giving up." Same thing with Bob Golding.
Yeah.
Having somebody in your corner is really important. I think to really push you in the right direction, and to point out if you start making mistakes. I mean, my
Yeah.
first paper, somebody read it and said it was horrible because it read like a travel log. It wasn't telling you your experience. The title of mine was Passion's Journey, where I'd almost gotten burned out, was ready to give up photography, and then I discovered my avian photography.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough to get it on my first time, but very few get it on their first time. And I think in the years that I've been associated with this, less than this many, less than this many. Most will attempt it more than once. And that's not a bad thing. Don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. But you want to learn from what the judges say and listen to what your other mentors are saying, and you'll get to the end result a lot quicker, if that makes sense. Is that a question, Raphael, or are you just adjusting your camera? All right. If you want to bring up one of those portfolios.
Raphael had a question. I think Raphael had a question in the chat box.
Oh, I'm
okay.
sorry, I missed that. He said, do you recommend do a print work exclusive for this, or better choose our lifetime images?
I'm sorry. Repeat the question.
Raphael, why don't you unmute yourself and you can ask it.
Just read it one more time.
Okay. Do you recommend do a print work exclusive for this, or better choose our lifetime images? So do you create images specifically for this, or do you use stuff you already have?
Yes. Create images specifically for this, because you may crop them different. You may have an image that entered into PPA, but to make the portfolio work, you may need to have a horizontal on the end, and you cropped it vertical for PPA, but it would crop horizontal. So you may want to, you would crop it horizontal for your your portfolio here. Like I said, it's got to work together. So yeah, these images are being printed for this competition. They may be images used other places at other times, maybe images that have never been used, but work within the portfolio. But
you don't necessarily have to go out and photograph 13 tomorrow to make it
No.
in there. No, that's
no,
no. Mm-mm.
And then
Work from
Maricela,
your body work.
I'm sorry, Carl, can you finish?
That's okay. You can work from your body work, absolutely. But I know that there's some people that I'm like, we have this one little spot right here that needs just something, and I don't have it yet, and I can't find it yet, and I'm not happy about it. And they'll maybe go off and create an image specifically for that location, but you don't have to do that either. Bruce has a question.
Yeah. Is presentation important? In other words, you need to have the black borders or the framing or what, that type of thing?
all 12 elements are important. So the answer to that is yes. Everything that is involved in image competition is vitally, is probably more important here because you're looking at 25 images at one time. You're not looking at one image at a time. You could have now understand, you send your case to me and we ding a corner, I'm going to tell the judges to ignore that ding. But we had somebody submit a portfolio 4 years ago that the mats looked like they were cut with a pair of scissors.
Yeah.
And that was certainly one of the comments that the judges brought up as they were discussing the portfolio, was that they didn't take time even with their presentation. So yeah, all 12 elements are important, and maybe more important, not only with each individual image, but as the portfolio sits in front of us.
So on that, Bruce, too, the images have to relate so much to each other and as a whole that your presentation, your matting, quote unquote, should pretty much be the same.
Yes.
In other words, don't have a red one and a blue one because the blue looks better in this one and the red one looks better in this. No. They should be close enough that their presentation is consistent across the board. Does that make more sense?
Thank you.
And then Maricela asked, do you get feedback from the judges if you don't accomplish the goal?
Yes.
From the committee.
Yes. What used to happen was, if you were not awarded the fellowship, we would ask the judges what reasons they didn't award it, and we would write notes down, and then we would go home, type up the notes, and send them to the people. Now, understand, when the judging is over, I will call you either way. Hopefully, I'm calling you with the happy news, but I do have to call you even if it's not happy news. And then what we used to do was then send these notes to you, which became confusing because one judge would say, print number 25 just didn't work for me. It didn't have the lighting I wanted or something. And then the next judge would say, I really thought it was a fairly strong portfolio, especially number 25. And so when they see the notes, they get confused. So now what we do is we turn on a video camera and I will tell you what the judges have said in a synopsis. And you will get a videotape of what the judges thought of your work that day. And then what I ask is that you listen to it, because I understand you're disappointed. I understand that you were hoping that you would receive the degree, but at the same time, I want you to sit on it for a week, re-listen to the video, and then call me. And I'll answer any questions at that point that I can, what the judges were thinking. And you can call Carl at that point in time, you can call Doran at that point in time, but you can't call the judges because you don't know who they are.
And you will not know who they are.
And there's a good reason for that, ladies and gentlemen, because understand, these judges, it's not like PPA where a blind image comes up and they're putting a score on it. These judges walk into the room knowing who submitted that portfolio. And my best friend, Ron Nichols, one of my best friends, if he submits a portfolio and I'm on the panel because I'm strong in the area that he submitted, they've asked me to do it, or I just know Ron, you know, if I say no to that portfolio and it got out that I could ruin a friendship, and we're not here to ruin friendships. The integrity of the judging must stand. And so we ask judges, you're friends with these people, you know these people, be honest with where their work fits with a fellowship degree. So that's why the judges will never be released, the names.
Shall I go ahead and share my screen?
Sure. And Carl, jump in on that too, what we're seeing as far as what we have.
So on our website at asp.com, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of the first landing page, you will see various options that you can click on. And one is this ASP Fellowship Images and Papers. So here we are, and look at this. Carl's portfolio is the one that popped up.
I seem to
So,
remember that.
well, yeah. And you said already that you did submit more than one time, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
this portfolio happens to be in black and white.
Mhm.
Did you submit in black and white every time?
No, in fact, the first one was color. The second, well, a combination. They're always a combination, and part of it was because in my lifetime of achieving skills, a big part of it was black and white work. And then actually a past mentor of mine who's not a fellow, what happened to be see it in when it was a combination of black, white, and color, and he's like, "You're being silly. You're not. It's not harmonizing." He said, "I don't even have a fellowship. I don't know what it's all about, but I think your work would look a lot better. Your portfolio would look a lot better if it was all the same." And so I had the choice of choosing between if I was going to go color or black and white. And at that time, most of my images were black and white already. So I went that route and it seemed to work out. But Bruce, do you see how all the presentations are the same? And as you see down in Christie's down below too, you so all the presentations match so that the image is what is drawn, what everyone is drawn to.
So with Christie's, what the strengths of Christie's are is print quality, lighting on the subjects, and the personality of each image. Now scroll back up to Carl's. Now this is a whole different layout. Carl is struggling now because he not just has dark images like Christie had, he wants to put some that are lighter or high key. But where he chooses to place them in this portfolio becomes a strength for him because they're on the bottom on each end. And so then it sort of works together. And then you see how with Carl's, it sort of goes up into a triangle type of a formation like we asked for, like if you were building a family. So you've got verticals, you've got horizontals, but they're strategically placed to strengthen the portfolio as it sits in front of the judges. He could put those 4 high key images anywhere in that portfolio, and I guarantee you the judges would have not gave him that degree because they're not in the right spot to make it work.
So it has to be well balanced.
Has to be well balanced. And so that's what I mean. The 12 elements not only have to work with each individual image, but they have to work with the whole portfolio as it sits before the judges.
And Dennis said it before too, and I think it's important to really say it twice. It's not all your best work. It's your best work that works well together. Some of my favorite pieces that I've ever created aren't part of this because they wouldn't fit. And it was hard because I'm like, I want to put this, but it just wouldn't have worked. And so that's where you need the help of others to kind of like hold you back and say, no, I'm going to save you from yourself. This is what needs to be here from what you have selected to be part of it.
So Joe, when you submitted yours, when it got to the end, at what point did you stop pulling images and adding images to your portfolio before
My wife told me to stop. What I did is I printed up smaller images and we had them laid out on the coffee table. I'd go by and pull some out. She'd go by and put some more back in. So we just go back and forth until at some point you just have to say to yourself, okay, I have to stop now, and this is what we're gonna submit. Because it's tough. I mean, it's very stressful, as anybody knows.
Yeah. Can you scroll down any more? Is there any others that we
No.
could look at?
Yeah, and you can
And then
see
if you're
download.
if you're a real hardhead, you print it yourself.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, Carl.
I have pictures of my camera room with extra pieces, mats that are thrown across the room because I had one little speck of ink on
Yeah.
it. We've went through a lot of paper, a lot of mats.
You can also download the PDF that is the paper.
This is
Just
gorgeous.
pointing out that link. Here's Doug's.
Mhm.
And then again, look at how Doug's layout fits perfectly with his horizontals on the ends and his verticals in the middle. He's got the 4 in the very top row that add so much strength to this. So it's how you place things. He could have put those 4 maybe in the middle, but I'm not sure that it would have had the strength that it has sitting up at the top. And so it's placement and highlights and shadows. Like if you look at number 2 and then you go down and look at number 24, you got blue skies that are sort of in the same locations but opposite. Same thing with number 18 and number 8 at the top. There's similar tones going across to keep your eye connected within this portfolio. And of course, again, somebody that just is exquisite with their artwork, but it's depending on where you place them with that. The middle bullseye in this particular portfolio is so much brighter than everything else. So that's where this one has to go, and you have to build around that. And not sure how Kimberly did it, but I'm guessing that she started with that one because she knew that had to be in the middle and then built around that. And again, she was really bold, like on the bottom right where the last 25th one is, that person is walking out of the frame. Most people would have put that on the other side, but she wanted that tension in this portfolio, and it worked.
And it also tied in with her paper. That tension actually tied in with her paper.
Correct.
So,
That was going to be my question. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, read her paper.
And again, here's another one from Christy Ellis. And these are all moody, but look at how the layout is. She's only got 2 horizontals, but they're strategically placed within this portfolio to add strength. And she's got an awful lot of square images in here, and she's placed them strategically throughout this portfolio. Look where the blues are. Look where the warms are. Nothing is too bright. So how does it flow together?
And she didn't use presentation.
Nope.
There's a right to the
And I
edge.
don't believe Ella Carlson never used a presentation on hers because hers were all metal prints.
I think
Yes.
Doug's are metal too, I believe. But
Who's?
Doug
Doug's?
Bennett's,
Yeah.
yeah. It's amazing.
The other thing is be very careful about the medium that you're printing on. Especially if you're working in black and white, you just be careful that it's going to look good under the lights. understand the same lighting conditions of PPA 1 second at F11, F16, sorry. But at the same time, we're trying to spread that all over 25 images and not one image. So our challenge is to not have speculars on your images, but that's why they're allowed to get up and look at them, because in the judging process, to light 25 images at one time, it's pretty impossible, to be honest. So looking at these, does anybody have any questions? You see a lot of black and white here, but there's also portfolios that are color. And if you keep scrolling down to the next one, is this Gabriel's?
Yep.
Gabriel, yeah.
Now, I've told you that be very careful about what you do, but look what Gabriel's done. Gabriel's put children in here. He's put weddings in here. He's put old people in here. But what makes Gabriel's work is the fact that it's all very well lit, very well posed, very classical. And I guarantee if it was in color, it wouldn't have the strength that it does in black and white sitting in front of us.
And here's a color.
Color harmony throughout this one. You know, if you notice, the two that are more muted and not have all the color are very top middle, very bottom middle. You know, and then you go to the top row on either end, and those start falling more out, and then you get some of the vibrant colors throughout the rest of the images. Like the purple one on the bottom row corresponds with that warm one that's just above it. So where you place them has a lot to do with it. And then look at how on the bottom row you got two strong verticals on one end and two strong verticals on the other end. It's just symmetrically laid out perfectly.
Beautiful one. They're all beautiful.
They're all beautiful.
They really are. I can't wait to start reading papers just for fun.
Yeah.
Well, and that is the fun part. When you read the paper and see the images or see the body of work, it just brings everything together, you know. And then and the thing is, when you do this, when you read these papers and look at these portfolios, you're going to get to know these people more.
Yep.
That's the point.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few here on the website for everyone to
Yeah.
go and look at.
Do they go all the way back to yours, Joe, or not?
See, mine's 2010.
Yeah.
We're going to find out. Here's 2012.
Dennis will say, "Well, how did you get your fellowship on that?"
I'd never say that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. No, that's Jim's.
Rods.
2011.
Oh, Tom Rose.
I don't want to make anyone nauseous by going too fast. Here you go,
Yours.
Joe. Beautiful.
Yeah.
There's the birds. Nice.
And it was hard for me to get that through my head, not to present them like PPA presentation prints, you know, that it had to look like an art piece. And, you know, I think the best advice I ever got was that it should look like a folio that you were putting together.
It's a body of work. And that's why I can't stress it enough. It's not 25 lone images. They have to work together. And, you know, it can be 25 lone images, but they better work together like these portfolios work together.
Yeah, and there were some in mine, even to this day, that I've never entered at PPA.
Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah.
So again, these are all available on the website, and we're back at 09.
The other thing is, if you have any questions at any time about the process, about how to do it, my email is available. Carl's email is available. And I'm more than happy to talk to you at any time about this. Because this competition, which is so much unlike PPA's competition, is that when you're done with this and you're awarded the fellowship and that hangs around your neck, you're more proud than any merit that you ever got at PPA. You're more proud than any award that you got at PPA, because there's 25 images. It's pretty spectacular to think what you just accomplished when you get this degree. That's my humble opinion.
Definitely agree.
Can I jump on with a question?
Yeah.
So I'm a little confused on, you're saying make 11 by 14s or bigger of prints, but then you're also showing this one digital image. Is it two different things, or am I just 11 by 14 of all the images as one? I'm a little confused there.
Each one is its own separate entity. So what you're seeing here on the website, you're asked to show how you want it set up. So if all my images were 20 inches long aside, okay, but it's going to be shipped there in a case, and who knows who's going to pick it, take it out and set it up. So they're numbered 1, 2, 3, this row, this row, this row, and so each one on the back is numbered with your name on it and so on and so forth. But then you put this in there, you just make it to scale on your computer so that they know exactly how to lay it out, what it looks like, so you get a visual of it as well. And just for the ease of the website for ASP, that's what they've been submitting or putting on or displaying on the website. But this is, how long is that 22 feet or 24 feet, Dennis? I think it's 24 feet.
It's 5 panels, 4 feet wide, right? So it's 20 feet wide.
20 feet wide when it's said and done. I mean, this is like the width of a room. When you look at it, it's spectacular. It's like your own museum showing for, a half a dozen people that are there to work on it and to judge it.
And when that portfolio comes with those layouts like that, if there's gaps between them, we try to make the gaps look the same as your piece of paper. We actually had one maker one time say, I want 3.4 inches between every image. And so we made it happen. And so we will duplicate your layout to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
So Marcella asked if Dennis and Carl, if you guys would be willing to share your emails here in the chat.
No.
I'm not sure how to even get to chat. Let me see. Hold on a second.
Yeah,
Or just verbally.
All right, I'll give you mine first. And anybody laughs, I will not talk to you. All right. It's Craft Photo, CRAFT, PHOTO at AOL.com. That's how old I am, Ron. Yes.
Hey, I have an AOL.com too, Dennis.
Well,
Mine's
it works.
MySpace.
It works,
Yeah.
So
I just put mine in the chat. It's easier that way. Just remember it's .net, not .com.
that's because nothing .com up in the UP.
Nope. We're behind the times, there, hey?
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Got a quick question. How do you actually mount these?
Carefully, very, very carefully.
I mean, what hanging method do you use?
They're rails. Now, each 4 by 8 sheet that we have 5 walls, 4 feet wide, and there's channels on them that line up perfectly.
Shelves.
So each one of those, so if you want 3 inches between your images, that's not a problem. We just spread them out on the channel and lay them out just the way you've got them. So yeah, we don't glue them to the wall. They're on channels.
Okay.
So these aren't going to be framed, so they can't be wired. So you have channels and clips that will hold them in place?
No, just a little shelf. It's just a piece of molding on that.
Oh, I get it.
It just sets on and leans against the back panel.
And that way it doesn't
All
damage
gray.
the mat. Yeah,
Mhm.
perfect. Anybody else?
And I just shared my phone number in case you need it.
Very generous. Andrew says he's feeling a little humbled. I understand. Well, thank you. This was incredibly informative.
Well, I don't know what Carl has to say, but probably 90% of you on this call have the quality of work to be awarded the fellowship. Putting the 25 images together is the challenge,
Mhm.
but I challenge you to do it.
And you'll have people to help.
Yep, you have all kinds of, we can't help you. We will not help you, but we can point you in a direction. If you're doing landscapes, we'll point you to other people that could help you, that would be more than happy to help you through this process.
Well, if there aren't any more questions, I'm going to pause the recording.